Peugeot's expertise in creating folding hardtop cars is well documented, and their 308cc is another impressive effort from the French marque in this sector. With neat styling and some clever interior touches, this revised version looks a strong package. Now, Peugeot has quite a history of folding hardtop cars, like this 308cc. Few of us will be able to recall the company's 301, 401, 601 and 402 Eclipse convertibles of the 1930s, but there's a good chance that you'll be able to picture the cabriolet that kick-started the modern trend for folding metal canopies on affordable mainstream cars, the Peugeot 206cc. Now, so successful was this design, launched at the turn of the century, that it spawned a whole series of rivals. Keen to keep market leadership, Peugeot not only bought us the 207cc in 2007 to keep its control over the affordable Super Mini based end of the class, but also tried its hand at the CC metal folding roof concept in the market sector where most like-minded cars reside, that of Focus-sized family hatchbacks. First up was the 307cc, launched in 2003, but in 2009 the French brand bought us a much more polished replacement, this car, the 308cc. At launch, this car didn't have too much to beat. Class entrants from Ford, Renault and Vauxhall were long in the tooth, and Volkswagen's rival EOS was significantly more expensive. But by 2011, things were a little different. There was by now an all-new Megane CC on the market with a clever glass folding roof, as well as an improved and more affordable Volkswagen EOS. And there were signs to a drift back to the kind of fabric-roofed convertible that this Peugeot's £20,000 to £25,000 budget could buy you, with cabrio versions of cars like Volkswagen's Golf, BMW's 1 Series and Audi's A3. All of which meant that this 308cc needed to up its game, with smarter looks, lower running costs and more equipment, all of which are apparently delivered by the revised version that we're looking at here. Let's check it out. Settle down in the seat and you'll find yourself sat a bit lower than you would in a comparable 308 family hatchback. Actually a bit lower than I would like, though that's intended to imbue this model with a bit of a sports car-like feel. Actually, there's no real need for this, since, like all its direct rivals, this really isn't any kind of sports car, except that at the outset, and once you're on the move, the rest of the news is generally all pretty good. Now, once rolling, should the weather be clement, as it is today, I'm assuming that one of the first things you're going to want to do is press this little button down here by the handbrake and to release the roof. Something that you can do at speeds of up to 7.5 miles an hour in just 20 seconds. Some other rivals force you to stop to operate the roof, which can be really annoying if you're stopped in start-stop traffic and you merely want to temporarily top up your tan. Roof down at higher speeds, you really get the benefit of that low set driving position. For those at the front really are well protected from buffeting. Those at the rear fare less well. Take to bumpier roads with the top open, and nastier potholes send shudders through the chassis. Compromises in chassis rigidity that you get with an open top car, well, they have to tell somewhere. So you're not going to be throwing this car around too many country roads. The rather overlight power steering that'll probably appeal to this model's target clientele, well, it doesn't encourage that anyway. But there's not much point in throwing this car around on its door handles. I mean, it's 4.5 meters long, 2 meters wide, and over 1,600 kilograms in weight. So it's never going to be like a Mazda MX-5 through the twisties. But by class standards, body roll is decently controlled, and there's really more than acceptable standards of grip. And over most services, the ride's pretty good as well. This car is a comfortable driving companion that's been properly engineered for its relaxing role in life. The suspension, steering and braking systems have all been thoroughly revised over a normal 308, plus there's a wider track, front and rear, creating in this car a far more dynamic driving companion than this model's frankly forgettable 307cc predecessor. The best way I can describe the improvement is to suggest that you could downsize into this Peugeot from an executive BMW 3 Series or Audi A5 style drop top and not feel too short-changed. True, there's a reason why you pay £10,000 more for those kinds of cars, but Peugeot has definitely narrowed the gap with this 308cc. The engine wear is unsurprisingly carried over from other Peugeot models, and that means you get the improved, pokier and more efficient power plant lineup introduced in the revised 308 hatchback, a car that was improved at the same time as this one. Now, the pokier bit of that equation is important, for this car has over 170 kilograms more to carry about than the 308 hatchback does. And that was one of the things that at the original launch of the 308cc made this car feel rather dull to drive. I mean, Peugeot could talk about a sporty approach and a sporty driving position all it liked, but when none of the engines could brake 10 seconds for the rest of 60 sprint, it was hard to take all of that too seriously. So things have changed. Yes, they're still the same 120 brake horsepower, 1.6 litre VTI entry-level petrol model, and the eco-conscious can buy into a frugal 1.6 litre eHDI model that, thanks to a range of efficiency modifications, can return up to 60 miles to the gallon. But these models apart, the rest of the range seems to have some genuine bite to it now. So the 1.6 litre THP petrol turbo variant dips just under the 10-second mark for the rest of 60 sprint, even if you saddle it with a 6-speed automatic gearbox. And the same engine has been tuned to 200 brake horsepower in the flagship model. And that means that you can get from rest to 60 or rest to 62 in just 8.3 seconds. And at that kind of speed, hair pieces really will need to be very carefully glued on. Even the diesel range can have a decent turn of speed. The top 163 brake horsepower 2 litre HDI model that I'm driving here makes 62 from rest in 8.9 seconds on the way to a top speed of around 130 miles an hour. Now, given that they've been restricted by the need to offer the same two-piece metal folding roof mechanism on this car that was found on the old 307cc, I think the designers have done a pretty smart job here. After all, Volkswagen's rival EOS uses a far more complex 5-piece roof mechanism to achieve a result that offers significantly less boot space and is arguably no prettier. Certainly not now this 308cc has been visually tweaked with more elegant lights, a satin chrome trimmed front grille and claw-like distinctive LED daytime running lights. As with all metal folding roof cars of this kind, a slightly distended rear end is needed to accommodate all that metalwork, but Peugeot stylists have done a better job than most of their rivals in concealing it. Your attention here at the rear distracted by these distinctive twin diffusers. As for the top itself, well, the whole cabriolet mechanism is governed by an electronic control unit that drops all 4 windows by 50mm or so before any roof operations commence. When they do, you'll find that the roof can retract or can be put back in place in just 20 seconds at speeds of up to 7.5 miles an hour. Now, the French designers have put considerable thought into the way that this 308cc is going to be used, and its 4-seater claims are highlighted by this electrical tilt and slide system that's been engineered into the height adjustable front seats to facilitate more elegant entry into the back. Overall though, this can be viewed as an adult 4-seater only over relatively small journeys. Legroom isn't especially generous, and really taller adults will struggle for headroom when the roof is raised. For 2 though, roof down, this is a lovely way to travel. Buffeting is minimal, and I love this airwave system that via these vents just below the headrest dispenses warm air like a scarf around your neck, encouraging you to get the top down on cold mornings. At the wheel, Peugeot's designers have tried hard to make this cabin feel distinct and different from that of the 308 hatchback model upon which it's based. The seats look and feel very comfortable with their integral head restraints. They're unique to this model. The white-faced instrument dials look upmarket and sporty, and if you specify leather trim for the fascia panel, then the interior begins to take on a very premium feel indeed. And the boot, well, it's comparable in size to the best in this sector, but that's not saying too much. In convertible roof down configuration, you get just 266 litres. There's much more space in here when the roof is up, of course, 465 litres. And though the boot itself may be restricted in size, it's undeniably meticulously finished. You get chrome luggage tie straps, this useful net that keeps the optional windstop package from moving about, and restraining straps for a warning triangle. Now, up front, the central locking also operates locks on the glove box and a storage box in the central armrest, so you can leave valuables securely even when you've left the car with the top open. Neat. List pricing for this improved 308cc suggests that you'll probably be paying somewhere in the region of £22,000 to £28,000 for the privilege of ownership. Now, that might sound quite a lot until you start to look at the pricing of the other direct rivals this car has, based on family hatchback platforms with cabriolet metal folding roofs. Those two direct rivals are Renault's Megane CC and Volkswagen's EOS. Now, the Volkswagen is clearly pricier, pitched at between £1,000 and more likely £2,000 more model for model. But the Renault is more closely targeted at this Peugeot. Petrol people will find that an entry-level 308cc 1.6 VTI 120 brake horsepower costs almost exactly the same as an equivalent Renault Megane CC 1.4 TCE 130 bhp. If you want slightly more petrol power than that, then the Peugeot is the more affordable buy. Renault, on the other hand, offers a more affordable entry-level diesel variant, but as you can see, it swings and roundabouts. Now, if you've got a £20,000 to £25,000 budget to spend on this kind of car and you're not fussed about having to have a metal folding roof, then of course your choice widens to all kinds of other fabric top cabriolet models in this kind of price range, including cabrio versions of cars like the Volkswagen Golf, the Audi A3 and the BMW 1 Series. Now, whichever 308cc model you choose, normally aspirated or turbocharged 1.6 litre petrol, or an HDI diesel of 1.6 or 2 litres in size, you should find your car to be decently equipped. All models get alloy wheels, air conditioning, a decent quality MP3 compatible stereo, the controls for which are behind a leather covered steering wheel. It's a pity that the base model doesn't get a Thatcham Category 1 alarm or rear parking aids, but these things are standard elsewhere. If you want an automatic gearbox, then you'll find it on the THP 1.6 litre turbo petrol model or this 163 bhp 2 litre HDI diesel. Unfortunately, it's necessary to stretch up to the plusher trim levels for the neck level heating system. And while we're talking about must-have extra cost features, I'd want to allow a bit of extra cash to tick the box for the optional windstop, which you'll need to properly enjoy this car when you're travelling roof down. This slots over the top of the rear passenger compartment when you're not using it to reduce high-speed buffeting. I'd also want to consider paying extra for the leather dash covering and the onboard Wi-Fi. But there is plenty of standard safety provision. Now, should you, heaven forbid, be about to turn the car over, then these rollover protection bars will spring out from here in less than 20 milliseconds to protect you, at which point front, side and curtain airbags will all deploy. Now, these airbags are cleverly incorporated into these front seats, so they'll cushion you quicker. Stability control and ABS brakes are included, as you'd expect for this kind of money. Now, running costs don't tend to be an absolute priority in this corner of the market, but times are changing, and if for you they've changed more than most, and you need your open-air thrills to be balanced with a heavy dose of sensibility, then the 308cc variant that'll interest you most is the 1.6 litre EHDI diesel variant. Now, this is capable of returning up to 60.1 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle, and as little as 123 grams per kilometre of CO2 if you fit it with energy-saving tyres. Now, those are the kinds of figures that would have seen from a little city car until a few years ago. And they've been achieved not only thanks to the tyres, but also thanks to a clever stop and start system that cuts the engine when you don't need it, when you're waiting at the lights or at a crossing, or when you're stuck in stop and start traffic. Elsewhere in the 308cc lineup, you'll find that even the 163 brake horsepower 2-litre HDI diesel model that I'm driving here manages nearly 50 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and puts out 149 grams per kilometre of CO2. And the petrol variants are reasonably frugal too. All manage around about 40 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and put out anything between 155 and 162 grams per kilometre of CO2, which in the case of the 149 miles an hour 1.6 THP 200 flagship model is a very good showing indeed. What else? Insurance groupings range between 16 and 30. And residual values, well, they won't be quite as high as those of Volkswagen, but they should better the 39% of original purchase price after 3 years and 60,000 miles achieved by the old 307cc. The folding hardtop convertible formula may not be quite as popular as once it was, but with this improved 308cc, Peugeot is showing just how effectively the concept can be mastered. Now, there will always be drawbacks to the obvious advantages of having a metal folding roof that you could stow away at the flick of a switch. But with this revised model, Peugeot has managed to minimise these even further with some well-judged aesthetic tweaks and a range of even more efficient engines. Here then is the standard that all other affordable convertibles must aspire to in the family hatchback-based £20,000 to £25,000 sector. This market is all about image and desirability. Just as well then that this car, arguably the most impressive in Peugeot's long line of hardtop drop tops, appears to have a decent helping of both.